Today we'll be reading Ram Charitramanas, the Ayodhya Kand, where Lord Ram is talking to Bharata and explaining, and they are planning to go to the forest for next 14 years. So there's a communication between Ram and Bharata. I'll start with chanting an Om, and we'll read the 21 next 21 pages from Tulsidas Sri Ramacharitra Overcome by the affection of her parents, Sita was too deeply moved to control herself, but realizing the awkward moment and her noble duty, Earth's daughter recovered herself. When King Janaka beheld Sita in the robes of hermitage, he was overwhelmed with love and was highly gratified. Daughter, you have brought sanctity to both the houses. Everyone says your fair renown has illumined the whole world. The river of your fame outshone the celestial stream, Ganga, in that it has penetrated millions of universes. While the Ganga has exalted only three places, the river of your fame has added to the glory of numerous congregations of holy men. Even though her father made these flowery yet truthful remarks out of affection for her, Sita was drowned, as it were, in the sea of bashfulness. Her parents pressed her to their bosom once more and gave her good and salutary advice and blessing. Sita did not speak but felt uncomfortable in her mind because she thought that it was not good to speak or remain with her parents overnight. Reading her mind, the queen Sunayana made it known to the king, and both admired in their heart her modesty and noble disposition. Meeting and embracing Sita again and again, they politely allowed her to depart, and availing herself of this opportunity, the clever queen eloquently told the king all about Bharata's condition. When the king heard of Bharata's conduct, which was rare as a combination of gold with fragrance or as nectar extracted from the moon, the king closed his tearful eyes and through his body and with gleeful heart he paid encomiums to his marvelous glory. Listen attentively, O fair faced and bright eyed lady. The story of Bharata loosens the bounds of worldly existence, religion, statecraft, and an inquiry about Brahma, the infinite, are domains to which I have some access according to my own poor lights. But thought acquainted with these subjects, my wits cannot touch the shadow of Bharata's glory even by trick, much less describe it. To Brahma, the creator, Lord Ganapati, Ganesha, Shesha, the king of serpents, Lord Shiva, Sharada, the goddess of learning, poets, scholars, and wise men, the character fame, doings, righteousness, amiability, goodness, and unsullied glory of Bharata are delightful to hear and appreciate. They surpass the celestial stream in purity and even nectar in taste. Possessed of infinite virtues and a man above comparison, know Bharata alone to be the like of Bharata. Can Mount Sumeru be likened to a seed? Hence, the wit of the race of poets was confused. The greatness of Bharata, O fair lady, baffles all who attempt to describe it. Even as a fish cannot glide on dry land. Listen, O beloved queen, Bharata's inestimable glory is known to Sri Rama alone, but he too cannot describe it. Having thus lovingly described Bharata's glory, the king, who knew his queen's mind, continued. If Lakshmana returns to Ayodhya and Bharata accompanies Sri Rama to the woods, it will be well for all, and that is what everyone wants. But the mutual affection and confidence, O good lady, of Bharata and Sri Rama, the chief of Raghus, are beyond one's conception. Even though Sri Rama is the highest limb of humanity, Bharata is the perfection of love and attachment. Bharata has never bestowed any thought on his spiritual or worldly interest or personal comforts. Devotion to Sri Rama's feet is at once the means and the N. To my mind, this appears to sum up Bharata's creed. Bharata would never think of flouting Sri Rama's orders, even unwittingly. We need not, therefore, in our affection, give way to anxiety, said the king in choked accents. As the king and queen, Janaka and Sunayana, were thus fondly recounting the virtues of Sri Rama and Bharata, the night passed like an instant. At daybreak, both the royal camps awoke and, after finishing their ablutions, proceeded to worship gods. Performing his ablutions, the Lord of Raghus called on his Guru, and after adoring his feet and receiving his tacit permission, said, Holy Sir, Bharata, the citizens and my mothers are all stricken with grief and inconvenienced by their sojourn in the woods. The king of Mithila, too, and his followers have been enduring hardships for many days past. Therefore, my lord, do what is advisable under the circumstances. The welfare of all lies in your hands. So saying, Sri Rama felt much embarrassed, and the sage was thrilled with joy when he saw his amiability and kind disposition. Without you, Rama, all amenities of life are like hell to both the royal camps. Rama, you are the life of life, the soul of soul, and the joy of joy. Those who like to be in their home away from you, my child, are under influence of an adverse fate. Perish the happiness, ritual, and piety in which there is no devotion to the lotus feet of Rama, yourself. That yoga is an abominable, abominable yoga, and that wisdom unwisdom, in which love for Rama yourself is not supreme. Whosoever is unhappy without you, and even so, whoever is happy through you. You know what exists in the mind of a particular individual. Your command holds sway over all, and your gracious self knows all the ways full well. You may return to your hermitage now. The lot of sages was overpowered with emotion. Sri Rama then made obeisance and departed, while the sage collected himself and called on King Janaka. The preceptor repeated to the king Sri Rama's naturally graceful words, which were full of amiability and affection, and added, O great monarch, now do that which may do good to all without prejudice to religion. O king, you are storehouse of wisdom, clever, pious, and staunch in upholding the cause of virtue, who save you is able at the present moment to find a way out of this impasse. Janaka was overwhelmed with emotion on hearing the sage's words. His wisdom and dispassion themselves shrunk away from him when they saw his condition. Faint with love, he reasoned to himself, I have not done well in coming over to this place. King Dashratha no doubt told Sri Rama to proceed to the woods. But at the same time, he demonstrated the love he bore towards his beloved son. As for ourselves, we shall now send him from this forest to another and return in triumph, glorying over our wisdom. Seeing and hearing all this, the ascetics, hermits, and the brahmanas were overwhelmed with emotion. Realizing the situation, the king took heart and proceeded with his followers to see Bharata, while the latter came ahead to receive him and gave him the best seat available in the circumstances. Dear Bharata, said the king of Tirhat, you know the disposition of Sri Rama, the hero of Raghu's line. Sri Rama is true to his vow and devoted to his dharma. He respects the feelings and affection of all. On account of the consideration of others, in conveniences, Rama feels disconcerted. Now give me your final word so that the same may be communicated to him. When Bharata heard these words, a thrill ran through his body and his eyes filled with tears, imposing a great restraint upon himself, and he said, My lord, you are dear and worthy of respect to me as my own father. And as regards my family preceptor, the sage Vashishta, my own parents are not so benevolent to me as he. Here is an assembly of sages like Kaushika, Vishwamitra, as well as ministers. And today, you too, an ocean of wisdom, are present in our midst. Know me to be a mere child and an obedient servant, and instruct me accordingly, my master. To think that you should seek my advice in this assembly of wise men and at this holy place, yet if I keep mum, I shall be considered black of heart. And if I speak on this occasion, it'll be sheer madness on my part. Nevertheless, I have the impudence to say something. Therefore, pray, forgive me, Father, knowing that providence is against me. It is fully recognized in the Tantras, Vedas, and Puranas, and all the world knows that the duty of a servant is hard indeed. Duty to a master is incompatible with selfishness. Hatred is blind and love is not discreet. Therefore, knowing me to be a dependent and with due deference to Sri Rama's wishes and consistent with his drama and sacred vow, pray do that which all approve and is good for all, recognizing the affection everyone bears for him. On hearing Bharata's words and observing his disposition, King Janaka and his followers applauded him, easily intelligible yet incomprehensible, soft and sweet yet hard, pregnant with a vast meaning though too concise. His mysterious speech was as baffling as the reflection of one's face seen in a mirror, which cannot be grasped even though the mirror be held in one's own hand. King Janaka, Bharata, the sage Vashishta, and the whole assembly called on Sri Rama, who delights the gods even as the moon brings joy to the lilies. On hearing this news, all the people were overwhelmed with anxiety, even as fish on coming in contact with water of the first shower of the monsoon. The gods first observed the condition of the family preceptor, the sage Vashishta, and next watched the great affection of King Videha. And then they beheld Bharata, the very incarnation of devotion to Sri Rama. Seeing all this, the selfish gods felt unnerved and lost heart. When they saw everyone full of love for Sri Rama, the gods were immensely perturbed. Sri Rama is full of love and consideration for others' feelings. Indra, the lord of celestials, despondently said, therefore, combine to contrive some underhand plot, all of you, or else we are doomed. The gods invoked goddess Sharada and praised her. They said, O goddess, we celestials have sought refuge in you. Pray protect us. Change Bharata's mind by exerting your Maya and preserve the heavenly race from ruin by taking them under the cool shade of some deceptive trick. When the wise goddess heard the god's prayer, she understood that selfishness had robbed them of their senses and accordingly replied, turning towards Indra in particular, you ask me to alter Bharata's mind? It is a pity. You cannot see Mount Meru even though you possess 1,000 eyes. The Maya, deluding potency, even of Brahma, the creator, Hari, the preserver, and Hara, the destroyer of the universe, exceedingly powerful as it is, cannot even face Bharata's reason, and yet you ask me to pervert it. What? Can the moonlight steal away the sun? Bharata's heart is the adobe of Sita and Sri Rama. Can darkness enter where the sun shines? So saying, goddess Sharada returned to Brahma's heaven, leaving the gods as distressed as the Karvaka's bird at night. The gods, who were selfish by nature and malicious at heart, laid an ill conceived plot and weaving a powerful net of deceptive artifice, set up a wave of fear, confusion, ennui, and vexation among the people of Ayodhya. Having started the mischief, the Lord of Celestials thought within himself that the success and failure of his plans lay in Bharata's hands. Now reverting to Chitrakuta, King Janaka went to the Lord of Raghus. The glory of the solar race received them all with honor. The priest of Raghu's line then spoke words which were appropriate to occasion and as well as to the assembly in which he spoke and consistent with righteousness. He reproduced the conversation that had taken place between King Janaka and Bharata, and also repeated the charming speech of Bharata. Dear Rama, he said, whatever order you give, all should obey. This is my proposal. Hearing this, the Lord of Raghus, with joined palms and in gentle accents, spoke words which were true and guileless. In the presence of yourself and the Lord of Mithila, it will be altogether unseemly on my part to say anything. Whatever order may be given by you and by the king of Mithila, everyone, I swear by yourself, will positively bow to it. On hearing Sri Rama's oath, the sage Vashishta and King Janaka, as well as the whole assembly, were embarrassed. All fixed their eyes on Bharata, as no one could make any answer. When Bharata saw the assembly confused, Sri Rama's brother exercised great self restraint and realizing that the unfavorable situation, he controlled his emotion even as the jar born sage Agastya had arrested the growth of the Vindhya range. The demon Hiranyaksha, in the form of grief, had carried away the globe in the shape of the assembly's wit, which was the source of the entire creation in the form of a host of virtues. When the gigantic boar of Bharata's discretion playfully delivered the same in no time, Bharata bowed his head and joined his palms before all, and thus prayed to Sri Rama, King Janaka, and his preceptor, the sage Vashishta, and other holy men present there. With my juvenile lips, I am going to make a harsh statement. Kindly forgive today this most unbecoming act of mine. He now invoked in his heart the charming goddess Sharda, who came from the Mansarovar lake of his mind to his lotus like mouth. Bharata's speech, which was full of pure wisdom, piety, and prudence, resembled a lovely signet in that it possessed the virtue of sifting goodness from evil. Bharata saw with the eyes of his wisdom that the assembly was faint with love. He therefore made obeisance to all and invoking Sita and the Lord of Raghus spoke as follows. O Lord, you are my father, mother, friend, preceptor, master, the object of my adoration, my greatest benefactor, and my inner controller. Nay, you are a guileless and kind patron, the storehouse of amiability, the protector of the suppliant, and all knowing, clever, all powerful, the befriender of those who take refuge in you, apt to appreciate merit and drive away vice and sin. You are the only master like you, my lord, while I am unique in disloyalty to my master, setting at naught in my folly the commands of my lord, yourself, and my father. I came here with multitude of men and women. In this world, there are good men and vile, high and low, nectar and immortality. On the other hand, on the one hand, and venom and death on the other. But nowhere have I seen or heard anyone who dare violate Sri Rama's orders even in thought. Yet that is what I have presumed to do, not only in thought, but even in word and deed. And my Lord has taken this presumption of my part as a token of affection and an act of service. By his grace and goodness, my Lord has done me a good turn. My failings have become my adornments, and my fair and bright renown has spread on all sides. Your ways, your noble disposition, and your greatness are known throughout the world and have been glorified in the Vedas and other sacred books. Even the cruel, the perverse, the vile, the evil minded, and the censured, nay, the low minded, the impudent, the godless, and the unscrupulous are known to have been accepted by you as your own as you heard that they had approached you for shelter, and if they merely bowed to you only once, you have never taken their faults to heart, even if you saw them with your own eyes, while you have proclaimed their virtues in the assembly of holy men, if you but heard of them. Where is the master, so kind of to his servant, who would provide him with all his necessaries himself, and far from reckoning, even in a dream, what he has done for his servant, would feel troubled at heart over any embarrassment caused to him? He is my Lord, and no other with uplifted arms. I declared this on oath. A beast would dance, and a parrot may attain proficiency in repeating what it is taught. But the proficiency of a bird and the rhythmic movements of the beast depend on the teacher and the dancing master. Thus, by reforming your servants and treating them with honor, you have made them the crest jewels of holy men. Is there anyone save all merciful who will rigidly maintain his high reputation through grief, affection, or mere childishness? I came here in defiance of your commands. Yet, true to his own disposition, my gracious Lord has taken my insolence in good part in every way. I have seen your most blessed feet and come to know that my Master is naturally propitious to me. In this august assembly, I have seen my good fortune in that I continue to enjoy my Master's affection in spite of great remissness on my part. My all gracious Lord has been extremely kind and compassionate to me in every way. All this is more than I have ever deserved. By virtue of his own amiability, noble disposition, and goodness, my Lord has ever been indulgent to me, giving up all consideration for the feelings of my master and this assembly. I have presumed too much by speaking politely or impolitely, even as it pleased me. But perceiving my great distress, I am sure my Lord will pardon me. It is a great mistake to say too much to a loving, intelligent, and good master. Therefore, be pleased, my Lord, to give your command, for you have accomplished all my objects. Swearing by the dust of my Lord's lotus feet, which is the glorious consummation of truth, virtue, and happiness, I proclaim the desire which I have cherished in my heart at all time, whether waking, dreaming, or fast asleep. It is to serve my master with guileless and spontaneous affection, forgetting my own interests and neglecting the four ends of human existence. And the greatest service to a noble master is to obey his orders. Let your servant, my lord, obtain this favor. So saying, he was utterly overwhelmed with emotion. A thrill ran through his body and tears rushed to his eyes. In great distress, he clasped the Lord's lotus feet. The excitement of the moment and the intensity of affection cannot be described in words. The ocean of compassion honored him with kind words and taking him by the hand seated him by his side. The whole assembly, including the Lord of Raghus himself, was overpowered by love after hearing Bharata's entreaty and seeing his disposition. The Lord of Raghu's congregation of holy men, the sage Vashishta, and the Lord of Mithila, all were faint with love and admired in their heart the surpassing glory of Bharata's brotherly affection and devotion. The gods acclaimed Bharata and rained down flowers on him as though with a doleful heart. Hearing of this, says Tulsidas, everyone felt distressed and uncomfortable even as lotuses get withered at the approach of night. Seeing every man and woman both of Ayodhya and Mithila afflicted and downcast, Indira, who was most malicious at heart, sought his own happiness by killing those that were already dead. Though king of gods, Indra is the worst specimen of deceitfulness and villainy. He loves others' loss and his own gain. The ways of Indra, the slayer of demon Paka, are like those of a crow, crafty, malicious, and trusting none. Having conceived an evil design in the first instance, he wove a net of wiles and made everyone a victim of ennui by throwing the net off the head of each. He then infatuated all by exerting the deluding potency of the gods, but they could not be wholly deprived of the affection they bore for Sri Rama. Overcome as they all were by fear and ennui, they were all distracted. Now they conceived a liking for the woods, and the very next moment they loved to be at their home. The people were afflicted by this vacillating attitude of their mind, even as the water at the mouth of a river is tossed on both sides. Wavering in mind, they did not derive solace anywhere, nor they did disclose their heart to one another. Observing this, the all compassionate Lord smiled within himself and said, the canine race, Indra, and reckless youth are alike in nature. Bearing Bharata, King Janaka, the host of sages, the ministers, and enlightened saints, the deluding potency of the gods prevailed on all according to the suspectibility of each. The ocean of compassion, Sri Rama, saw the people agitated, on the one hand by the affection they bore towards himself, and on the other by the mighty trick played by Indra, the lord of celestials. The assembly, the king Janaka, the preceptor, the sage Vasishtha, the other Brahmanas, and the ministers all had their wits hampered by Bharata's devotion to Sri Rama. Like figures drawn in a painting, they regarded Sri Rama and uttered with diffidence words which they had been taught to repeat as it were. Bharata's affection, courtesy, modesty, and nobility were delightful to hear, but difficult to describe. Seeing a minute particle of his devotion, the host of sages and the king of Mithila were absorbed in love. How, then, can I, Tulsidas, speak of his glory? It is his devotion and noble sentiments that have inspired sublime thoughts in the poet's mind. When it came to know of its own poverty and the magnitude of Bharata's glory, it shrank into itself out of respect for the barriers imposed by the race of bards. Though greatly enamored of his virtues, it is unable to describe them. The poet's wit finds itself as helpless as an infant's speech. Bharata's untarnished glory is like the moon without its spot, while the poet's brilliant wit is like the young of a kikora bird that remains gazing with unwinking eyes when it sees the moon rising in the heavens of a guileless devotee's heart. Bharata's noble sentiment cannot be easily grasped even by the Vedas. Pardon, therefore, O poets, the frivolity of my poor wits. By discussing Bharata's genuine love, man, who will not get devoted to the feet of Sita and Sri Rama? Is there anyone so vile as the man who is not easily inspired with love for Sri Rama by the very thought of Bharata? Seeing the plight of all and knowing what was in the mind of his devotee, Bharata, and after fully considering the place, time, occasion, and gathering, the all merciful and all knowing Sri Rama, the Lord of Raghus, who was a champion of virtue, self possessed and prudent, and an ocean of truth, love, amiability, and joy, nay, who respected the laws of propriety and was faithful in his love, spoke words which formed the very essence of, as it were, of eloquence, and which were salutary in consequence, and sweet as nectar to hear. Dear Bharata, you are an upholder of righteousness, well versed in secular lore as well as in the Vedas and adept in love. Pure in thought, word, and deed, you are your only compeer, dear brother. In this assembly of elders and in such adverse circumstances, how can I recount the virtues of a younger brother? You are conversant, dear brother, with the traditions of the solar race, and know how truthful and how fond of fame our father was. You are also alive to the gravity of the occasion, the circumstances in which we are placed, and the consideration we should have for the feelings of our elders, and further know the mind of your friends, foes, and neutrals. You are also aware of everyone's duty as well as of what is best for you and me and of what we should do. I have entire confidence in you. Yet I say something appropriate to the occasion. In the absence of our father, dear brother, all our interests have been conserved by the goodwill of our preceptor's family. Otherwise, our subjects, our kinsmen, our own people, and ourselves all would have been undone. If the sun, the Lord of the day, sets before time, tell me who is in this world will not be subjected to hardship. A similar calamity was visited upon us by Providence, but the sage Vashishta and the Lord of Mithila saved everything. Not only the affairs of the state, but our honor and fair name, our virtue, land, riches, and houses, everything will be protected by our Guru's glory, and all will be well in the end. At home as well as in the woods, our preceptor's goodwill alone will protect both you and me as well as those about us. Obedience to one's father and mother, preceptor and master is the prop of all virtues, even as Sesha, the lord of serpents, supports the globe on his head. Therefore, obey the commands yourself and help me to do the same. And be the savior of the solar race, dear brother. This is the one discipline that bestows all success upon the striver, and like the triple stream of the Ganga, Yamuna, and Saraswati at Prayaga combines fame, salvation, and prosperity. Considering this, and even though enduring great hardships, make your subjects and your own people happy. My woe has been shared by all, but your lot will be the hardest for the whole term of my exile. I know you to be tender hearted, yet I'm speaking repugnant words to you. But the time are so out of joint that this will not be unjustifiable on my part. In hard times, good brothers alone stand one in good stead. It is by one's arms alone that one parries the strokes even of a thunderbolt. Servants should be like hands, feet, and eyes, while a master should be like a mouth. Hearing of this way of love between a master and his servants, good poets offered their tribute to the same. Hearing the speech of Sri Rama, the chief of Raghus, which was imbued as it were with the nectar churned out of the ocean of love, the whole assembly was lost in a trance of affection. Even goddess Sharada was struck dumb at their sight. Bharata derived supreme consolation. Now that his master was propitious to him, woe and evil turned away from him. He now wore a cheerful countenance, and the heaviness of his heart was gone. It seemed as if a dumb man had been favored by the goddess of speech. He then made loving obeisance and spoke with his lotus palms joined together. My lord, I have derived the joy of having accompanied you and have also obtained the reward of being born into this world. Now, my gracious lord, whatever be your command, I will bow to it and carry it out with reverence. Pray vouchsafe to me, good sir, some tangible support by serving which I may be enabled to reach the end of the term of your exile. In obedience to our preceptor command, my lord, I have brought for your coronation water from all holy places. What are your orders respected the same? I have one great longing at heart, but due to fear and diffidence I am unable to mention it. Tell me, dear brother, what it is. Thus receiving the Lord's permission, Bharata replied in words sweetened by love. With your permission, I would go and see Chitrakuta with its sacred spots, holy places and woods, birds and beasts, lakes and streams, springs and hills, and particularly the land adorned with my Lord's footprints. Certainly, do as the sage Atri bids you to, dear brother, and wander without fear through the woods. It is the sage's blessing, brother, which makes the forest so auspicious, holy, and executedly beautiful. Deposit the water from holy places wherever the chief of sages Atri directs you. On hearing the reply from his lord, Bharata rejoiced and cheerfully went and bowed his head to the lotus feet at the lotus feet of the sage. The selfish gods, when they heard this conversation between Bharata and Sri Rama, which was the source of all felicities, applauded the race of Raghu and rained down flowers from the tree of paradise. this concludes today 21 pages of Ayodhya Khan. I'll end it with an Om. Thanks for listening. Namaste.